This is Boston University's Neurophotonics podcast. My name is Sung An, a third-year PhD candidate in biomedical engineering, and I am the producer and editor of this episode of the podcast. This episode, our lively hosts are joined by themselves as they talk about their journey to Boston University, how this very podcast has come about, what it will look like going forward, and their research experience right here at BU. That said, thank you for tuning in, and please enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Season 2 of the Neurophotonics podcast. My name is Dora, and I'm here with
Sudan.
And our producer, Sung, behind the camera, who told us not to coordinate. However, Sudan and I ended up showing up both wearing jeans and a black top.
I'm absolutely furious.
This is totally accident, to be honest. But Sung doesn't trust us, so...
So we have planned our season 2 around a little bit more casual conversations regarding our graduate school experiences, since this podcast is geared towards prospective students who are already here at BU, and people who are considering joining the Neurophotonics Center. So we thought that stepping back just a little bit from focusing on very specific scientific topics and interviewing experts on it, which can be a lot to handle at times. We wanted to just have a candid conversation regarding how we ended up here at BU, what our BU experiences have been so far, in a way to give back to the community.
Yeah, very happy to start season 2. As Dora mentioned, there were a lot of experts and professors talking about their science. This season, we'll do a little bit of that, but more, it'll be our honest dialogues on our grad school experience, how we're finding research at BU, and how we are making use of NPC.
Yeah, I guess we can then start with how we ended up here at BU. Do you want to give a little bit of a background on your education?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did all my education before high school in Nepal. And then for undergrad, I wanted to do something related to the medical field. I was really into becoming a doctor, then realized, it's a different kind of doctor that does the type of research I want to do. So the major that I chose was biomedical engineering, not because I knew exactly what I was going to do, but because I did not know what I was going to do. And biomedical engineering allowed me to do everything. So I got a little bit of undergrad research experience. And then to continue that, I applied to BU as a PhD student.
Can you tell a little bit more about your undergraduate experience, because you did that at NJIT, right?
Absolutely. So that was in New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey. Joined one of the research lab in my second semester of the undergrad, and that was auditory neuroscience lab. So did a little bit of animal work, did a little bit of data analysis. That got me more into computational stuff, some more computational methods in neuroscience like ML, DL, everything. And there were a couple of internship opportunities here and there, mostly in academia, some in industry as well. So I kind of knew what industry side looks like, and also I had pretty good view of what academia looks like. So it was a conscious decision. All right, let's go for a PhD. Looked at a bunch of different programs, and BU had really good biomedical engineering program and a lot of cool collaborations specifically for computational neuroscience and auditory neuroscience. So that's how I got to BU. What about you? You did your undergrad in Serbia, right? So can you talk a little bit about that? I'm really interested in knowing what the difference is like doing undergrad in America versus somewhere else, and how the journey to grad school looks like.
Yeah, so I learned what biomedical engineering was when I was 17. I was a junior in high school, and I went to this panel sort of thing, and I met a girl who was studying biomedical engineering, and I loved it because my parents are engineers and I wanted to be an engineer ever since I was a little kid. However, I also loved biology, and I wanted to figure out how I can combine the two things. And when I talked to this girl after that panel, I knew that that's the major I want to pursue. However, in Serbia, we were the 5th class of biomedical engineer, so it was a very unknown field. People were not sure what you're supposed to do with that, and because of that, there were not many research opportunities, even though a lot of us were interested in it. So I started looking at opportunities elsewhere, which is how I ended up in Germany for a semester abroad during my 2nd year of university. And I took classes in German. So my first just like experience with machine learning was in German.
Wow.
So which to say it was like a very interesting experience nevertheless. But I also managed to get there an internship. I was helping out in 2 different labs and figured out that there is such a system where you can do research, because in Serbia it was very theoretical classes just because there was no infrastructure in such a way. And then since in Germany, I lived in a little village. I hated it. I came back to the city and I was like, okay, I know at least for the future, I need to live in a city. And at the end of my senior year of undergrad, I went to Rice University in Houston and I did a summer internship there. And I loved it. And I loved how research worked in the US. And that's how I decided that I want to come back here and do my PhD. So when I went back to Serbia, I started applying. I was doing in parallel my master's. So that was, a lot to handle.
Must be tough, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I applied to 3 schools and I got an acceptance letter from BU, and I haven't even waited for the other schools to reply. I just knew that this was the place I should come to.
Absolutely. Well, quick question. So was coding also in German language or no?
Yes.
So instead of writing...
I mean, no. So when you write code, no, the code itself was in English. I mean, I think everybody writes. I think in my undergrad as well, all of the code we were writing, I mean, maybe the variable names were, some shorthand of, the Serbian, version of what that variable is supposed to be called. But I mean, I think coding is everywhere universal. So that's why I managed to pass the class, I think.
Yeah, I was curious. Cool. I mean, so similar story for me as well. I didn't do my undergrad in Nepal, but if I had done, I would have been the 5th batch. Biomedical engineering itself being the new field, you can imagine some of the countries who are a little bit lagging behind on the infrastructures. A lot of the traditional engineering, those infrastructures are there, but for biomedical engineering specific, it's new. Even the U.S. institutions struggle with that, having all the infrastructure. So some of the selected few universities got a little bit ahead, like Boston University or NJIT. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. How did you know that you wanted to get involved with neuroscience?
Ooh, that's a fun one. So I did not have a strong bias towards neuroscience or inclination or whatsoever, because I wanted to do medical school. Anything biology was really fun. So I remember spending hours and hours learning about genes and genomics and all that. So that was also really fun. My first semester of physiology class in freshman year, I was talking to my physiology professor asking for research opportunities, and he said there is one which is stem cell for cancers and stuff, and another is auditory neuroscience. Which one would you pick? And I could not decide, and I was like, what would you suggest? How do I pick? So question back to him, and he said, if I was you, instead of going with what field I want, if you're not really sure, I would ask question, whose mentorship would help me get furthest in my career. And at that point, Dr. Angie Hillefeld, he thought she would be a better mentor for me than the other lab, and that's how I chose. And as I started getting more involved with the research projects, the love to neuroscience just kept growing, and here I am.
Yeah, it's fascinating how the surroundings or the lab that you end up in shapes your view of how science is done.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we can talk about this more in another episode as well, on how to choose a lab, depending on if you would prefer to be with a younger professor who maybe has a smaller lab and has more time to work with you, or if you want to join a bigger lab that has all of this infrastructure and microscopes already built that you can just like sit down and use. However, that comes with that professor being very busy usually. So yeah, I mean, we can go in more detail some other time, but I'm just wondering quickly, what type of lab did you join initially, and did you stay with the same type of lab now in your PhD? Meaning, like, if you were in a small research group and now you're in a bigger one, or vice versa.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in my undergrad lab, it was just 2 PhD students, so very small lab, and it was first time PI. So those students were her first PhD students, and naturally, as you said, they had much more time and attention to provide for me and nurture me. So that was a big plus. And social, little bit was hampered by COVID, but whatever we could make of, we used to have virtual social hours, or right before the COVID and after COVID, we used to have lab lunch and stuff. So it was a good balance of socialness and working environment, and how much help you would get. As an undergrad, you were mostly advised by the PhD students. Those are your first point of contact. But whenever I needed more guidance, PI was also readily available, which was really good. So that's my impression of how science was done, and I was in for it. Like, it was a good example of how science was done. So that was really good. Now here at BU, luckily, I have 2 labs. So one is a big lab, what Dora just mentioned, and another is much smaller lab, closer to what I had seen in my undergrad. So in the future episodes, we can go much more in depth on what size labs provide what advantages, my experience and everything. But for today, I would also want to know your experience. How was your undergrad lab? And did you do multiple labs? Did you stick around with the same lab? And what was your perception of how science is done versus your expectation and reality in PhD?
Yeah, so I did not have a lab when I was in undergrad because there were virtually no labs to join. There was a very few select, and those labs were usually very closed off to undergrads. And, just the communication style with professors in Serbia very much differs than here. Here, you just send them an email directly. They respond within the hour. That is something that is kind of unheard of there, because you have to write a very lengthy email. You have to address them properly and then hope
Sounds
for a
very
response.
formal.
Yes, very formal. So most of my education was very, very formal. Even the projects we were working on, like, we would correspond with the TAs and, get help there. But there was very few options to just like learn something other than what's provided in the curriculum, which is why I started this science club at our university, where we established a connection with the medical university, and we started collaborating on interdisciplinary papers. I mean, it was for their little what is it called, like the medical faculty congress. I mean, it was like a once a year type of thing, but it was just really encouraging to pair up students who were actually interested in doing research, who would find them professors who were willing to advise them. And then those students would work on this collaborative project with a medical student who needed help on the computational stuff, because in previous years when I went to that congress and when I saw that they are calculating stuff in Excel and stuff that it would
Classic,
be so
yeah.
exactly stuff that it would be so easy for us to implement models or like, we know the science on how to extract numbers properly from the data, or how to extract conclusions from the data. That's something that they were completely lacking. So that was my way of like getting into science. And then when I went to Rice, I had a small lab where a PhD student was supervising me. But he gave me like a lot of freedom to just figure out. I was working on an OCT microscope, and I was looking at the vestibular canals. And, it was very chill. He didn't have a lot of expectations from me, but, I was trying, in my own way to learn how to dissect, like the head of the mouse to, extract all of the anatomical parts that you need. I was developing my own machine learning models to actually classify the anatomical parts. So, it was a very pleasant experience, which is why I wanted to come back to the US to do my PhD.
That sounds like a really chill lab, like getting to dissect and then build your own ML models, like totally in your control. I see. That's a great experience as an undergrad. Like that really helps.
Yeah, I guess we can talk a little bit about our experiences once we came to BU, because that first year I feel like was very formative for us. So yeah, for my perspective, we were a very tight cohort. We were studying together. We were organizing various things. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll leave it up to you to tell that story in more detail, and then I'll just chime in.
Sounds great. Yeah. So first year at BU, it was very interesting. So Boston, I fell in love with Boston in 2021 when I came to just visit my friends. And among many reasons to come to BU, Boston location itself was one big as well, and probably true for you as well. So a lot of cool things to do together with the cohort in Boston. So first year, we started with hanging out and eating lunches together. And then we realized how, well, the example was already set by the previous year's cohort as well. Everybody was doing something social. So going to the social events, naturally, we opened up a lot and made a lot of friends within the cohort, which always helps. And a couple of fun things was right after our qualifying examination, the whole cohort went to Rhode Island for in a beach house for 3 days. That was amazing. Everybody needed to blow their steam and just relax in the beach. So that was amazing.
What is the qualifying examination?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So it's not all just fun and social. There's some readings to do as well. So qualifying examinations, being part of broader NPC, each department has its own, each college has its own. We are housed at Biomedical Engineering Department, which is housed in College of Engineering. So our qualifying examination in department is you choose two topics. I choose one data science and another is neuroscience. So there would be 3 papers from each category. And you also chose similar, or what was your topic?
Yeah, I chose neuroscience and optics. And then other parts of the cohort, depending on what types of labs they were joining, would choose synthetic biology.
Exactly.
Or I don't even know what else there was on the biomechanics.
Yes, that was one big one. So people would combine those topics, and then 3 papers each. You would prepare the entire paper plus the breadth of the knowledge in your field. So that would be 6 papers plus some breadth and stats. You can never get away from stats as PhD student. So that was 3-4 weeks of preparation. Everybody was stressed out, and then probably it was also shared hardship.
A bonding experience.
Shared
for sure.
hardship and bonding experience during the quals that also made the cohort come really close together. A lot of group studying sessions like this. We just scribble on the whiteboards and basically prepare for the qualifying examination. So that would be 1 hour of questions being asked about those papers in field in general. And once you pass that, you can go to Rhode Island and party.
I mean, you become officially a PhD candidate compared to a PhD student.
Yeah.
So that was a big step for us, because I feel like in a lot of programs, you become a PhD candidate way later in your PhD journey. And we're just lucky to be PhD candidates going into our second year.
Exactly. So second year, we were already PhD student. PhD candidate. So we could have done the cohort outing or whatever anytime, but right after the quals felt like we deserved it, and everybody was already like de-stressed. So that was amazing. And we were just lying in the beach playing some games. That's how we started talking and becoming friends.
Yeah, exactly.
So bonded over the 3 days, and then we started talking about neuroscience, philosophy, and everything. And that kind of conversation kept going. We hung out outside of the organize outings as well. And one day, right outside the Neurophotonics Center, where it's housed, Silsicom Avalon, we were just out there having lunch out in the sun, and then we again started talking about philosophy and neuroscience and everything. And then we were like, this could have been a podcast. Maybe other people could also benefit from hearing about this. We talk about this anyway. Why not just record it low stake? Let's just start something. And that's how we started Neurophotonics podcast. Would you like to add any more anecdotes to it?
I'm just thinking how everybody nowadays just grabs a mic and they're like, oh, you know what? This conversation could be recorded. And that's kind of what we did as well. However, I do want to emphasize that this was multiple years ago. So a little bit before it was trendy to this degree to actually like sit down and record a podcast.
Yeah, so we're not that far away from the trend, but I'm glad we're in 7th episode, so I guess it's going pretty well.
Yeah. So after our cohort trip, since that was somewhere in June, in July, we had our first actual big event with the Neurophotonics Center. We had the Neurophotonics Bootcamp, which is organized for first and second years. Everybody who is in some way, shape, or form affiliated with the Neurophotonics Center. So you don't have to be a BME student. You can be in neurobiology. You can be an ECE. So it's truly a very diverse center. And that first boot camp that was 3 days long, it like further bonded the students who are just part of it, because we spent days, building microscopes or doing some type of experiment, and these days were very long. However, we went away with I think good friendships and also good potential collaborators.
Absolutely. My favorite part was going to the BU medical campus and then poking the worms with various scientific instruments, to be honest.
I do remember that. I completely forgot.
Yeah, that one was a fun one. Yeah, and we were not told by anybody to do a podcast. BU doesn't direct us, so nobody is forming or directing the content. This is totally up to students.
Yeah, it was a nice student-led, self-initiated type of committee. So the Neurophotonics Center already had a few student committees, one of which was the Neuroethics committee. In our episode 4, I believe, we have interviewed the co-presidents of the Neuroethics committee, and we had a few conversations regarding their events and how they're organizing things. And ever since then, I mean, in the last year or so, this trainee organization has expanded rapidly, so much so that now we have an executive committee that is managing the communication between the center and the student committee, so that we can actually focus on these initiatives, which means for us recording these podcasts, just focusing on the creative sides of it, of what we want to talk about, what topics we want to touch on. So that has been really nice.
That was really cool, actually. I mean, from the moment where we spoke about doing a podcast to going up to the Neurophotonics Center and suggesting that we do the podcast, it was so easy. All it took was, yes, we're committed to making this podcast. We'll do it. Can you help us? That was it. And the committee was formed. And same thing with the BCI committee as well. And same thing with now professional development committee as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's our newest
expanding rapidly, getting more organized, getting more autonomy for the students, because it's a student-led committee. So that is also pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, the Neurophotonics Training organization is always looking for motivated students to join us. I mean, our podcast committee is always happy to take on new students as well. Right?
We need more people behind the camera.
Or in front of the camera.
Yeah, or in front of the camera, or helping write episodes, or coming up with episode ideas. Any suggestions for future episode ideas are also welcome in the comments or, face-to-face. So the podcast for us is a bit of a hobby. It's kind of like what we do for the Neurophotonics Center. What would you say, if you were to sum up kind of like what you do in terms of research, like your actual research, what would that look like, your day-to-day, or what you focus on?
Yeah,
I mean,
you can go ahead.
I go into the office, I code for 8 hours, and then go home. No, but jokes aside, I when I joined BU, I first started in an experimental neuroscience lab, and I was doing mouse experiments in vivo, so mice that had cranial windows implanted on them, and I was looking at the visual system and how various types of neurons would connect to blood flow when prompted by some type of visual cue. Shortly after that, because that was just like way too, so experimental neuroscience is, especially working with mice, I feel, and also like with humans, it just takes a really long time, and I realized that I'm not as passionate about like the experimental part of it. I was always somehow finding ways to analyze my data and build pipelines to somehow like extract information from the data that I was gathering. So in my third year, I actually switched labs, and now I'm in a statistical lab. My advisor is fantastic, and we are focusing on looking at layer 5 pyramidal neurons in the context of neuromodulation. So it's still very connected to what I was working in my previous lab. And we're just looking at the power spectrum of these neurons and like the activity and connection between how information is being processed in the dendrites and the soma, and how the two are connected. So I would say I'm really enjoying my PhD. It's really fulfilling, and I think I'm like, other than the research, because it's a very specific and niche topic, which a PhD should be, I think I'm also gaining a lot of relevant skills that I will be able to use in my career onward.
This could be a future episode, but did you find that it was pretty easy to switch labs in your third year?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit heartbreaking that I had to leave a project I invested 8 months into, and unfortunately was not working out. But just, you know, like starting a project from ground up is a very taxing job. However, now that everything is set up, I can now in retrospect say that yes, it was worth it, because, you know, doing a type of research that does not fulfill you for years and years, it just takes a toll on you. And there's a lot of stories from PhD students who have actually just got so burnt out towards the end of their PhD that they lost all motivation to do any type of research, any type of job, like by the end of it. So that's something I wanted to avoid for all costs. And if that meant sacrificing however many months of previous research, I think it was worth it.
That is quite an example. Like even in third year, you were just following your heart and then basically sacrificing a couple of months for more fulfillment in research. That's absolutely necessary, I think.
Yeah, how about you?
Me, so I really wanted to work with Kamal Sen when I joined BU, because his research directly aligned with my research interest, and it was even the research topic itself, the cocktail party problem, which is hearing in crowded and noisy scenarios. And that was the research I was doing in undergrad as well. So domain, I would be familiar with the domain to start with. So I really wanted to rotate with him, but the grant was not sure to be awarded to him just yet. But we were pretty confident eventually he would have the grant. So meanwhile, I had to rotate, and then I knew he was already having a collaboration with David, but David did not have rotation or in mind for the FNIRS project just yet, the human side. So I actually rotated with David on stroke project, where we actually study stroke in mice, and very cool project, but I was more interested in the cognitive and computational side. So I rotated in Dr. David Summers' lab, which was very much cognitive and fMRI, but I had planned to either establish a collaboration between him and David Boas, or in some capacity have David Boas as one of the advisors as well. And then right around that, we realized we were very close to getting the grant for Dr. Kamal Sen's lab, so it was no-brainer to just carry on that previous collaboration and keep going. So that's how I ended up joining the lab and this project. And a little bit about my project. So we're trying to understand how brain can just tune into some visual or some auditory part in crowded and noisy situation and ignore everything else. Like Sung is ignoring me right now.
I am not ignoring you.
I was just making sure. Anyway, so if we understand how brain does that, the idea is that we can take that and build some machine learning or some computational model and make smarter hearing aids. So you can think of it as neuro AI powered hearing aids, which you can just attend to a location and steer the beam of the hearing aid so that you can only focus on your friends and ignore the rest.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, when I did my research at Rice, it was an auditory lab.
I know. That was one of our conversation, right? Yeah, it was 8 a.m. one of the BME seminar courses. You're sitting right beside me, and then we're like, oh, so you also did auditory neuroscience? I think we were just connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think that was the way we actually started talking. You're very correct.
So, auditory neuroscience, both. Yep.
Yeah, although the lab I was in was very molecular, like science-based. Except for like this project that I was working on, because that was a side mission for them, and so I never got into the auditory part. I was reading their papers, but for me, somebody who hasn't had any molecular biology background, because in Serbia, just BME is constructed as a very ECE computer science
very
heavy.
much Nepal as well. Yep.
Yeah, just because of the resources available, nobody is able to do, like have a lab with very valuable instruments. So anything molecular based was science fiction for me. And I remember trying to read their papers and I was not understanding a lot. However, with the vestibular science, it was a little bit more like classical engineering task based. So I was able to comprehend it. But it was really nice connecting about that. Yeah.
Actually, I had, I don't know if I shared this with you. So after my first lab at NJIT, my advisor, she left NJIT, so I had to join another lab, her friend's lab, which she referred me to. And there we were doing the vestibular type of stuff where you basically make a hole in the vestibular system and see how hearing and balance would get affected. So there as well, like me, I didn't have that kind of surgical or whatever background. I did slice some of the brains and did some smaller like dissection or whatever, but that was also way out of my current research projects, if you will. So right now, my day-to-day activity also looks like whatever Dora said. 95% is just sitting in front of the computer and coding all day, and 5% here and there I get to do the data collection as well. I don't mind experimental side either, but I think I'm more inclined towards computational side, but sometimes it's a good mental break. Like, entire day, all I do is data collection, which means my thinking side of the brain or like more coding side of the brain can shut off for a bit. And then next day I can get back to it. So it's a productive code procrastination or whatever. So the job is still getting done.
I wouldn't call it procrastination, but as you said, it's very freeing to have a little bit of a pause in terms of using a specific type of your brain. So for example, when I was in the experimental lab, I learned the whole science behind how to crossbreed mice of different genetic like with different genetic modifications, of how to pair them together, how to clip their ears, how to inject them with certain viruses so that they're expressing certain types of genes. And that I felt was very practical. It was something that I was doing with my hands. So after those days where I would do that part of the science, which was crucial to doing the experiments, I just felt very fulfilled. It was like something palpable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and with that, I think we can wrap up this episode. This is the beginning of a new amazing season, and we have this different setup going on here. And I think our hosts are also very excited. You can see it in their faces.
He is very much forcing the smile on my face, but it's working. So
smile.
But yeah, I think I like this kind of format as well. Instead of being in front of the table and in front of the laptop, we are much more free, I think, chatting this way. It feels more natural. So expect more natural and this type of freely flowing content. And in the middle, there might be some more structures, but mainly it would be something similar to this.
Yeah, it feels like we're giving back to the community in a more immediate way, just because our content is geared towards graduate students or prospective graduate students or anybody who wants to get in touch with the Neurophotonics Center, and just directly sharing our experiences rather than talking about an abstract topic, I think can be valuable in ways as well.
Absolutely. I mean, this is not the only, but one of the anecdote had inspired this kind of free form content as well. We last week figured out that prospective students and new professors are enjoying and listening to NPC podcasts, so that was very encouraging. And we realized more than anything, a new prospective student and a professor would like to learn about what kind of research is going around, what to expect when you come to Boston University, what to expect from Neurophotonics Center. And to talk more about that, our next season or this season is definitely going to focus on that more.
Yeah, so thank you everybody for tuning in to season 2 of the Neurophotonics podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode and want more like it, please take a moment to share it with anyone you think would enjoy it too. If you are listening on Spotify, please check out our YouTube version of the episode for some bloopers and outtakes. If you are watching on YouTube, these will follow shortly after the following message. This episode was made possible by the support of Boston University's Neurophotonics Center and listeners like you. Thank you.
Wait,
I like that
let
we
me
can
see
try
how I can not make it as formal.
Oh, maybe look at me?
All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
I got it natural. All right, cool.
1, 2, 3. That was a really clean snap.
Yeah, good
I'm
job.
happy with that. Let's pause here for a moment.
Thank God, I was running out
Yeah.
of sentences. I was wild, Larry. I did not have a word planned after that.
Yeah, I just don't know how to properly transition because I don't know when we cut it off last time.
Oh, we
But-
just cut it off with Sudan saying, that's cool story, bro.
Maybe in future seasons we can go much more in depth on what kind of labs provide what.
Future episodes.
Oh,
Wait, are you doubting that we're not going to have multiple seasons?
I mean,
so in the future episodes we can go.
do that again. You had a hesitation before episodes.
Yeah.
You wanted to say seasons.
Once it happens, it doesn't stop.
When will you,
It's okay. It's okay.
You know, people may never know what's actually happening behind the camera, so...
Yeah, can we flip the camera and just show that song you saved?
No.
All right.
Song you're...
We said we not make formal, and that kind of got formal. All right.
Yeah.
Back at it. All right.
being chill.
Yeah.
Back to being chill. Loosen up.
Loosen up. Loosen up.
Bye.
Great. We're ending with that.
Just zoom in on his
Yeah.
face.
Wait. Do the bye again.
Bye.
Yes. Yes.
The evil laugh.
Yes. Okay.